Deuteronomy 23, His Ways, Part 7. He that is wounded in the stones or hath his privy member cut off shall not enter into the assembly of Jehovah. This section here is about who can enter into the assembly of Jehovah. And remember, we set him apart, he sets us apart. Okay. A bastard shall not enter into the assembly of Jehovah. Even to the 10th generation shall none of his enter into the assembly of Jehovah. So in the first verse, it was somebody who has been had his privates cut off, basically. The second one is someone who was born outside of marriage. To the 10th generation. So the Lord wants us to set him apart to the point and do things his way to the point that when we don't, it affects not only our generation, but it can affect generations that come after us. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the assembly of Jehovah. Even to the 10th generation shall none belonging to them enter into the assembly of Jehovah forever. Okay. So this is a very interesting scripture because Ruth was a Moabitess. She was a Moabite. And yet she is in the genealogy of Christ. But it says here that a Moabite shall not enter into the assembly of Jehovah. But very interestingly, Ruth gives up her right to be a Moabite and says that Naomi's people are her people. And she'll go where Naomi goes. So, somebody who wants their own identity, somebody who insists on their own identity, an identity of people who, and we'll find out in verse 4, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth from Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor, Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse thee. So those people, in general, were against God's people. And for 10 generations, it affects them. Nevertheless, Jehovah thy God would not hearken unto Balaam, but Jehovah thy God turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because Jehovah thy God loved thee. He loves those people who he has set apart and who set apart themselves unto him. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity all thy days forever. Thou shalt not abhor the Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a sojourner in his land. The children of the 3rd generation that are born unto them shall enter into the assembly of Jehovah. So, don't hold grudges against the Egyptians or the Edomites. Uncleanness is to be avoided in the host. When thou goest forth in camp against thine enemies, then thou shalt keep thee from every evil thing. Again, keep him set apart. If there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of that which chanceth him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. So we are to set him apart. He sets us apart, and we are to maintain it. But it shall be, when evening cometh, he shall bathe himself in water, and when the sun is down, he shall come within the camp. And when things happen to us such that we're unclean, we are to realize that we're to isolate. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. And thou shalt have a paddle among thy weapons, and it shall be, when thou sittest down abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and thou shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. For Jehovah thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he may not see an unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. So, that's a wonderful scripture. When we're truly set apart, Jehovah God will walk in the midst of our camp, in the midst of our lives, and we should not see any unclean thing in us, or he'll turn away. If we're not truly trying to do things his way, he'll turn away. This has to do with going to the bathroom. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master a servant that is escaped from his master unto thee. He shall dwell with thee in the midst of thee, in the place which he shall choose, within one of thy gates, where it pleaseth him best. Thou shalt not oppress him. So if a slave runs away and comes to the congregation of the Lord's people, then we should not send him back. Now, in the New Testament, Paul sent back a servant to his master. This servant, Onesimus, I think, had become a Christian, and Paul was sending him back to his master, who he hoped was also a Christian. Fugitive servant. There shall be no prostitute of the daughters of Israel, neither shall there be a sodomite of the sons of Israel. No prostitution. In God's people. Those people who claim they are set apart to the Lord. And this is people who are that. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a harlot or the wages of a dog into the house of Jehovah thy God for any vow, for even both of these are an abomination unto Jehovah thy God. So what we bring before the Lord as a tithe, as a vow, as any offering, shall not be done, shall not be obtained in a manner that is not the way God would have it. Thou shalt not lend upon interest to thy brother, interest of money, interest of victuals, which is food, interest of anything that is lent upon interest. Wow. This is a group of people who help each other out and don't expect anything in return. That's God's way. Unto a foreigner thou mayest lend upon interest, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon interest. that Jehovah thy God may bless thee in all that thou puttest thy hand unto, in the land whither thou goest in to possess it. So he's got a set apart people, and they're going to a set apart land. And these set apart people have in turn set him apart and have embraced his ways and are doing things his ways. And as you work your relationship with the Lord, that's what happens. The more you reverence him, set him apart, the more he will set you apart. The more you will want to do things his ways, because you will realize his ways are the best. And it just grows. And then you look out at the world and all the things that are going on, and you just want to cry. Well, thou shalt vow a vow unto Jehovah thy God, thou shalt not be slack to pay it. For Jehovah thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. So when you make a vow to Jehovah, you should follow through. A lot of people make vows to the Lord, and they don't follow through. And one of the ways that we know we're set apart is we're careful, A, not to make vows unless we are, B, willing to follow through with them. So, and a lot of times we can get caught up and say things. But when we are his people, when we've truly set him apart, then we will follow through with what we say. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. But when you abstain from vowing, it is not a sin. So as we are set apart, we will vow less things. But what we do vow will carry through. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt observe to do, according as thou hast vowed unto Jehovah thy God, a freewill offering which thou hast promised with thy mouth. So if we have vowed, we shall observe to do it. When thou comest unto thy neighbour's vineyard, then thou mayest eat of grapes thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. When the disciples were eating grain, and the Pharisees said they shouldn't eat grain on the Sabbath, they were not breaking the command. Because this is not date or day specific. When thou comest into thy neighbour's vineyard, thou mayest eat of the grapes at thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put it in thy vessel. In other words, you can't harvest. Eat what you want of the field. While you're in the field, don't take any with you. When thou comest into thy neighbour's standing grain, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thy hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbour's standing grain. In other words, don't harvest it. But if you want to eat some while you are there. There is no Sabbath specific thing. And the Pharisees had gotten so much into trying to protect the Sabbath that they didn't realize this part. Working would be supporting yourself, but eating on a day is allowed. Just don't harvest. Just don't take any home with you. Don't take any home for your friends or your family. That would be harvesting. But get your fill. If they're hungry, help them come back. The Lord wants us to be set apart to Him. He wants to set us apart to Him. He wants us to do things His ways, His way. He wants us to not do things our way, but favor His ways. And as we do that, we set Him apart. He sets us apart. And our relationship, the relationship between us and Him grows. It grows more deeply. Grows more fulfilling. Father, we just thank You for Your word. In Jesus' name, amen.